Express the solution set for the inequality in interval notation. 1 over 2x less than or equal to 1/4. The process that we will use to find the solution set depends on our ability to transform this inequality so that we have one term on the left and 0 on the right of the inequality. So we should begin by subtracting 1/4 from both sides of the inequality to get 0 on the right. So when we subtract 1/4 from both sides, the result will be 1 over 2x minus 1/4 less than or equal to 0. Now we can see that we have two terms on the left separated by the minus sign. We need to transform this so that there is only one term. In order to combine the fractions, there must be a common denominator. The common denominator is 4x. So we should multiply the top and bottom of the first term by 2 and the top and bottom of the second term by x. This will result in 2 over 4x minus x over 4x less than or equal to 0. Now we should combine the terms so that there is one term on the left side of the inequality and 0 on the right. So this result will then be 2 minus x over 4x less than or equal to 0. So now we will go through the process of finding the solution set for this inequality. We must keep in mind that in order for an expression to be less than 0, it will have to be negative. Rational expressions are negative when the top is positive and the bottom is negative, or the top is negative and the bottom is positive. In other words, the positive and negative signs are opposites for the numerator and denominator. So we will list each factor so that we can determine the intervals where each is positive or negative. We'll list 2 minus x and 4x. We should align a number line so that the variable values that would make each factor equal to 0 can be identified. So we will stretch a number line out to the right so that we can identify where each of these expressions would have a value of 0. 2 minus x would be 0 if x were equal to 2. 4x would be 0 if x were equal to 0. Now if we extend vertical lines through these points where each is equal to 0, we can see that we've broken the number line up into 3 parts. The part where the x values are less than 0, the part where the x values are between 0 and 2, and the part where the x values are greater than 2. Now we should determine the intervals where each is positive or negative. If we were to substitute values that are less than 0, such as -2, -3, or -4, in for x in the expression 2 minus x, the result would be positive. Likewise, if we were to substitute values that are between 0 and 2, like 1/2, 1, or 3/2, the expression 2 minus x would still have a positive value. But if we were to substitute values for x, such as 3, 4, or 5, then the expression 2 minus x would be negative. If we substitute values that are less than 0 in for the expression 4x, such as -2, -3, or -4, the result would be negative. If we substitute values that are between 0 and 2 for x in the expression 4x, the result would be positive. If we were to substitute values that are greater than 2 for x in the expression 4 times x, the result would be positive. We must keep in mind that these factors will be divided. We are dividing 2 minus x by 4x. So now we will determine the resultant positive or negative sign for each interval. In the interval from -infinity to 0, we would be dividing a positive value by a negative value. This result would be negative. In the interval between 0 and 2, we would be dividing a positive value by another positive value, and that result would be positive. In the interval from 2 to infinity, we would be dividing a negative value by a positive value, and that result would be negative. Keep in mind that our objective is to find those intervals where this expression would be less than 0 or negative. So our solution set would be -infinity to 0, not including 0, because substituting 0 for x would create a 0 in the denominator. Union 2 to infinity, including 2, because substituting 2 for x would create a 0 in the numerator.